My awful husband made me a suspicious cup of tea, so I switched it with him. He took a sip and suddenly gasped, "What have you done?" I leaned in, nothing. Just wanted to see how it feels when the tables turn. His mistress burst in crying. "Tell me you didn't." I never thought my marriage would end over a cup of tea. Then again, I never thought Damien would be the kind of man to betray me so thoroughly, so completely, that I'd be left questioning everything I ever knew about him. But here I was, sitting at our dining table, watching my husband slide a steaming mug of tea in front of me with an unreadable expression on his face. It was a simple gesture, something so domestic that it should have felt normal. But didn't. It felt wrong. "Tea?" he asked, his voice smooth, casual, too casual. I glanced up from the pile of mail I had been sorting through, my fingers lingering on an unopened electricity bill. I studied him for a moment. He was standing by the kitchen counter, his hands gripping his own mug just a little too tightly. The dim glow from the overhead light cast long shadows on his face, making his expression harder to read. Damien hadn't made me tea in months, maybe even a year. My stomach twisted, but I forced a small smile. "Thanks." I wrapped my fingers around the mug, letting the warmth seep into my skin. But I didn't lift it to my lips. Instead, I glanced at Damien again. He was watching me. Not obviously, not in a way that screamed danger, but in a way that sent a shiver down my spine. He took a slow sip from his own cup, but his eyes kept flicking toward me, waiting for me to drink. Something inside me, some deep primal instinct, sent out an alarm. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the months of coldness between us, the late nights at work, the unexplained credit card charges, the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. Maybe it was the way he had stopped touching me, stopped looking at me like he used to. Or maybe it was just the sheer absurdity of a moment. Why now? Why, after all this time, did he suddenly feel the need to make me tea? I stirred the liquid with my spoon, watching as tiny ripples danced across the surface. "You didn't make yourself one?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a split second, before forcing a chuckle. "Already had mine." I let my spoon clink against the rim of the cup, forcing myself to keep my breathing steady. Calm. Normal. I needed to act like I suspected nothing. Then, just as I was about to take a sip, I fumbled. "Oh." The cup tilted forward, spilling a little of the tea onto the table. Damien flinched. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. I grabbed a napkin, dabbing at the mess quickly. "Sorry," I murmured, reaching toward him. "Here, take this one. I'll make myself another." His fingers curled around the handle instinctively, but his knuckles turned white. "That's not necessary," he said quickly. I smiled, tilting my head. "Why not?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, neither of us moved. We were locked in some silent standoff, a battle waged over something as small as a cup of tea, but beneath it lay something far darker. He didn't want to drink it. I could see it in the way his atoms apple-bobbed, the way his hand trembled ever so slightly. He had put something in mine, and now it was in his. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms as I watched him. "Drink it," I silently dared him. Damien's breath quickened. "Elena." His voice was lower now, almost pleading. My heart slammed against my ribs, but my expression remained neutral. "Something wrong?" His lips parted slightly. He looked down at the tea, then back at me. Then, as if accepting his fate, he lifted the cup and took a sip. The moment it touched his tongue, his entire body tensed. He choked, dropping the mug onto the table, splashing the remaining liquid everywhere. His hands gripped the edges of his chair, his chest heaving. "What have you done?" He gasped, his face paling. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "Nothing. Just wanted to see how it feels when the tables turn." And then, the front door burst open. A woman stood in the doorway, her face streaked with tears, mascara running down her cheeks. Her hands were trembling. "Tell me you didn't," she wailed, her voice cracking. And that was the moment everything unraveled. The room was deathly silent except for Damien's ragged breathing. His fingers trembled against the table, eyes darting between me and the sobbing woman in the doorway. I turned my head slowly, taking her in. I didn't recognize her, though deep down, I knew exactly who she was. Dark hair, curled at the ends, a fitted coat thrown over her shoulders, her lips smudged like she'd been nervously biting them. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, but her expression made her look older. She looked terrified. Damien hadn't said a word. His lips were parted like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. His face was pale, his fingers twitching against the spilled tea. The woman stepped forward, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Damien, tell me you didn't." Her voice cracked. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. "Didn't what?" I asked, my voice smooth. She ignored me, her wild, tear-filled eyes locked onto him. "Damien," she pleaded. "You said it was just to make her sleep. You swore to me." I inhaled sharply, but I didn't react. Not outwardly. So I had been right. A sedative. I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. Wow, that's what you were going to do? Knock me out like a damn dog? I turned my gaze to Damien, who was still gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him upright. And then what? Sneak out in the middle of the night while I was unconscious? His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Elena, he rasped. It wasn't. He coughed violently, his voice failing him. His hands trembled as he wiped his mouth, his breathing shallow. I scoffed. Wasn't what, Damien? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you drugged my tea and we're about to slip away with your mistress like some cheap, second-rate con man. The woman winced at the word mistress, but she didn't deny it. She clenched her fists, taking a shaky breath before turning to me. You don't understand. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. No, I cut her off. You don't understand. I've spent the last year watching my husband slip away, pretending not to notice the late-night calls, the hidden credit card charges, the sudden business trips. And I stayed. I stayed, hoping that maybe it was all in my head, that I was just being paranoid. I took a step toward her, my voice low. But it wasn't, was it? Her bottom lip quivered, but she didn't answer. I turned back to Damien. So, tell me, what was the plan? I gestured to the half-empty mug, the one he had just drunk from. Were you going to let me wake up alone, confused, wondering if I'd been robbed? Or were you going to leave a nice little note? His jaw clenched, but he still wouldn't speak. The woman, his mistress, shook her head rapidly. It wasn't like that. She insisted. We didn't want it to be messy. I barked out a humorless laugh. Messy? Oh, honey, you drugging me was the messiest thing you could have done. She wiped her face with her hands, looking completely undone. You don't get it, she whispered. He was scared of how you'd react. He didn't want to fight with you. Fight with me? I repeated, voice laced with disbelief. So, instead of having a difficult conversation like a grown man, he decided to knock me unconscious? Silence. Damien's breathing was getting worse. He shifted in his chair, his hands gripping his stomach. I leaned in slightly, my voice eerily calm. You feeling okay, sweetheart? His glassy eyes flickered up at me. And in that moment, I saw something I never expected to see in him. Fear. Real, genuine fear. And that's when I knew. He had no idea what was in that tea either. Damien's breathing grew shallower, his fingers twitching as he struggled to maintain his composure. His mistress hovered next to him, gripping his shoulder as though that would somehow keep him upright. I leaned against the table, watching the scene unfold with an eerie sense of calm. Something wrong? I asked sweetly, tilting my head. Damien wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His skin was clammy, his pupils slightly dilated. What did you do? He muttered, barely able to keep his voice steady. I lifted my eyebrows. Me? I didn't do anything. I gestured toward the mug. You're the one who made the tea. You tell me, what was in it? His face contorted, as if his brain was trying to piece together a puzzle he had designed but no longer understood. The mistress, who, until now, had been teetering between panic and misplaced concern, suddenly turned to me, her eyes sharp. You switched them, she whispered, realization dawning. I smiled, a slow, satisfied smile. Of course I did. Damien let out a choked breath, gripping the edge of the table harder. It was just a sedative, he stammered. It wasn't anything dangerous. I folded my arms. Right? Because drugging your wife so you can sneak off with your mistress is completely normal. His mistress squeezed his arm. Damien, we need to get you to a doctor, she whispered urgently. I sighed dramatically. Relax. It's just a mild sedative, isn't it? You'll be fine. A little groggy, maybe, but you should be used to that since it was your plan. Damien groaned, his head dipping slightly. His body was betraying him now. He was slumping, struggling to sit up straight. His mistress turned back to me, her voice rising. You did this on purpose. I arched a brow. Oh, so now I'm the bad guy? I let out a short laugh. Let's be real, sweetheart. The only reason you're upset is because your grand escape plan just crumbled in front of you. Her lips trembled, her hands gripping Damien's arm tighter. You don't understand? I rolled my eyes. I understand perfectly. You thought you could erase me like I was some inconvenient little footnote in his life. Drug me, leave me behind, and move on without a second thought. I stepped closer, lower my voice. Tell me, did he promise you my house? My car? My bank account? She flinched, her eyes flickering with guilt. Bingo. Damien groaned again, his hands gripping his head. His body was reacting to the sedative now. Sluggish movements, heavy blinks. He was fighting it but losing. I grabbed my phone off the table, taking my time unlocking it. Since you two seem to be struggling with basic morality, let me make things simple. You have two options. His mistress clenched her jaw. What options? I held up my phone. Option 1, I call the police. I tell them my soon-to-be ex-husband drugged me in an attempt to abandon me and flee with his mistress. I'm sure they'd love to hear all about the premeditated use of sedatives. I might even throw in that I felt threatened. I let the words hang in the air, watching as her face drained of color. Damien's head snapped up. No, I smiled. Option 2, you both leave. Now, and you make this separation very easy for me. I turn my gaze to Damien, voice sharp. You sign everything over. The house, the car, our savings. I walk away with everything, and you walk away with nothing. You don't contest a single thing. Damien blinked sluggishly. You can't? Oh, I can. I cut in smoothly. Because if you try to fight me, I will make sure this recording finds its way to the authorities. I tap my phone. Yep, I recorded everything. You, panicking over the tea. Her admitting what the plan was. It's all here, nice and neat. His mistress let out a strangled noise. Oh my God. Damien's hands curled into weak fists. You. I leaned down so we were eye level. You thought you could betray me and get away with it. You thought I'd be the dumb, loyal wife who wouldn't fight back. I smiled. But you forgot who you married. He slumped back in the chair, the weight of his mistake crashing down on him. His mistress grabbed his arm. Damien, let's go. He didn't move at first. Then, with great effort, he stood. He swayed slightly, the sedative still coursing through him, but he managed to steady himself. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. By the way, I added, if you ever come back here, if you ever try to screw me over again, that recording goes public. Damien exhaled sharply through his nose, but didn't say a word. His mistress wiped her eyes. I hope you're happy, she spat. I tilted my head. I am happy, actually. Happier than you, at least. Because I'm not the one walking out with nothing. She had no response to that. Damien hesitated at the door, his head lolling slightly. His expression was unreadable, but his shoulders sagged in defeat. He knew there was nothing left to fight for. And then, just like that, they left. I stood there for a long moment after the door slammed shut, listening to the silence that stretched through the house. It was strange. Just hours ago, this space had felt like a prison, a place where I had been trapped in a loveless marriage, slowly suffocating under the weight of Damien's lies. But now it was mine. I took a deep breath, letting the reality of it settle in. The house, the car, the bank account, my future. Damien was gone. No more cold stares across the dinner table. No more whispered phone calls in the other room. No more lies. I walked over to the kitchen counter, my fingers grazing the still warm mug he had left behind. A quiet laugh bubbled up in my throat. He had drugged himself. The irony of it was almost too good. Grabbing my phone, I opened my messages and scrolled down to my lawyer's contact. Time to start the divorce proceedings. He won't contest. I added a little smiley emoji for fun before hitting send. Then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned on my favorite music, poured myself a fresh cup of tea, one I made myself, and curled up on the couch. As the warm liquid slid down my throat, I let out a long, contented sigh. I was free, and for the first time in a long, long time, I was happy. And Damien? Well, I doubted he'd be drinking tea anytime soon.